Brian, your chance to respond.
You know, the federal and state issue, 30 states so far, when put to the vote of the people, have voted to protect traditional marriage. Another 15 states, by the way, including Maine, have voted to put laws into effect that protect traditional marriage. The Maine vote is going to be very important because it is another people's vote, and the people will have another opportunity to protect traditional marriage in this country. As far as DOMA is concerned, as Mary will tell you, she's actively looking to overturn that law. She herself said that she hopes it will be overturned within the next 10 years. If DOMA is overturned, it's going to cause a lot of issues with the will of the people in those 30 states that have voted to protect marriage.
And go ahead.
Yeah, I probably should respond to that. First of all, whatever other states have done, this is a vote for Mainers about Maine. And that's where I think whatever Arkansas or Mississippi have done, in Maine, we have values that I think are extremely important about not getting in the way of other people and other families, aside from a very proud tradition of equality. But apart from that, with respect to the Federal Defense of Marriage Act, I should be very clear, Brian, I am dealing with a part of it where people who are married are essentially being unmarried by the federal government and told that after a lifetime of working, they can't get Social Security benefits that would help them live their old age out of poverty. I'm not at all dealing with the interstate part. Frankly, that was the law before DOMA, and it's the law now. States get to decide this unless there's someday some overarching federal rule that says, sorry, that's discriminatory under the federal Constitution. But I'm only dealing with the federal government discriminating against people who are married by their states.
There's a chance. Brian, did you want to respond to that?
All I was going to say is we'll see what happens if DOMA is overturned, and we will see what the effect of that is. Time will tell.
I want to also, there had been an earlier discussion about, you had brought up the issue during the very first segment, talking about a man and a woman, procreation, that sort of thing. I believe that you had, Mary, asked for some time perhaps to respond to some of that as well, to bring it back to that discussion.
Yeah, and I just think it's extremely important for people to understand that under Maine law, it's been the case, if I can just be really blunt about this, that you know, no particular sexual act is required in order to have a valid marriage. And so that's why, in fact, you can see that people who are 85 years old can marry, you know, if they meet in a nursing home. People who are on their deathbed can marry. The law has not required people to procreate, and that's why you're just as married if you never have children, if you have foster children, if you have adopted children, or if you have biological children. So to the extent that marriage is good for children, our point is then those same reasons argue in favor of allowing people like me, you know, with a partner 22 years, to marry for our children as well. If it's good for children, then it's good for all children.
You would ask to go back to that point, so I think it's fair to give Brian a chance to have the last word on this as well.
Sure. I think what the current law says, and I highly recommend people read it before they vote on November 3rd, is that marriage is about bringing forth the next generation. In there it talks about the inestimable value to society. They're referring to procreation because they're referring to children. There are specific references in the findings and purposes, which is unique to that law, by the way, that it does go into findings and purposes because marriage is so important. It talks about children, and it talks about families. And that's what it's still about, procreation, children, and families.
All right, thank you so much. When we come back, we're going to have a chance to have some closing remarks from both these folks. We'll be back after this. And welcome back to our News 13 live event, the Question 1 debate on same-sex marriage. We earlier had a chance to flip some coins for deciding the order of closing statements. I think I have it right this time. Brian Suchet, we're beginning with you.
We think marriage matters. We think marriage matters because it is the singular institution that can bring forth the next generation and ensure that they have both a mother and a father. We do think mothers and fathers matter. Our version of marriage talks about what that institution brings to society. What you see on No on One is basically a vision of marriage that all talks about what society gives to that specific small group of individuals. It's backwards. Marriage is important. It's about kids. It's about family. It's about bringing forth the next generation of society. If there are issues with the law that need to be resolved, we can certainly do that, but we do not need a radical redefinition of marriage in order to make that happen.
All right, Brian Suchet from the Yes on One campaign, thanks very much. Mary Bonato from No on One.
Gay and lesbian couples in this state are seeking to join in marriage, not to change it. Laws have changed about marriage over the generations as our views about equality and fairness have changed. Laws have changed so that women are no longer losing rights on their wedding day and becoming Mr. and Mrs. Him. Now Catholics and Protestants can marry. People can marry regardless of their race. And the legislature has said it is time that gay and lesbian couples who are willing to take on the commitment and responsibilities of marriage should be able to marry as well. Sometimes the question comes up about a substitute and an alternative. And I would ask, would any of you who are married want to trade in and exchange your marriage certificate for some other union or license, you wouldn't, and that would be a good choice, because nothing but marriage provides all of the social and legal protections of marriage. I want to remind voters of one person who I met in the legislative process, Philip Spooner, 87-year-old World War II veteran from Biddeford, who said what he fought for in World War II is the idea that we can all be different and still be equal. Please vote no on one.
Mary Bonanno from No on One, thank you so much. Brian Suchet from Yes on One, thank you so much.
Thank you.
As I said, remember to vote on November 3rd, and remember to tune in to WGME 13 Election Night for all your election coverage and updates, results as we get them.